If one particular programme is the essence of Manx Radio, it's the listener's phone-in programme, the Mannin Line. It relies on the audience in a number of ways, wanting to share their views on this and that, being prepared to ring up or message in, and doing it in a way that doesn't get lawyers reaching for their phones. As programmes go, it's quite simple and quite cheap. And it can be controversial and influential. As politicians are aware, it can raise subjects that voters see as important. Well, for this programme, I've gone back 30 years to dip into the Mannin Line to see what was under discussion. A lot of it is really quite familiar. Featured will be two of the phoners in who became household names in the island. Dorothy from Peel.
Now, wait a minute, David. Just give me a chance to finish.
And Marge Jocken. Also featured is the famous...
Oh, we've lost that call.
So let's start and begin at the beginning. 1991 I'm going back to. David Collister taking the calls and laying down the ground rules.
This is Manx Radio's Mannin Line, the voice of the people of the Isle of Man. Mannin Line serves as a platform for the expression of views on virtually any topic of island life. Callers are reminded, though, they must avoid any comment of a defamatory nature, as this could have legal consequences. The views expressed on Mannin Line are exclusively those of individual contributors and shouldn't be taken as representing the views of Manx Radio's staff or management. The number to call is 66 13 68.
And a very good morning. Naturally, the lines are open, 661368, for whatever you want to talk about.
And I begin today with a letter that I had in front of me on Friday for the programme, which at that time had no name and address, but we now have that, so I'm pleased to be able to read a letter sent in by the lady who wishes to be known as Annabelle. And she says, I feel I must write to you in connection with comments made on the Mannin Line programme on Tuesday the 17th of February. I believe in freedom of speech, so I feel that I have the right to express my own views about the needy people on the island. First, there are a number of people on the island who misuse the social security system. One has only to read last week's local papers to find certain people who claim benefits whilst working or their partners work. There are also scroungers who don't wish to work and people who want everything new and something for nothing. Believe me, these pests are only a minority. I would say about 20% of people claiming benefits, but they spoil it for the rest of us, people like myself who really are in need. I don't know where these people get their information from regarding Social Security handouts. A very small sum of money is actually given for essential equipment, i.e. £45 for a baby's pram. They cost at least £150 new, plus cosy toes and hood and aprons, well over £200. They also give £75 for a cooker. Can you purchase a new cooker for that? I'm a single parent with 3 young children. My youngest is only 6 months. I'm not single by choice. I used to be married, but for the safety of myself and my children, I had to part from my husband. When my husband eventually left, he was so bitter that he took away everything that he had purchased. Then he threw gloss paint all over my house, ruining furniture, carpets, clothes, and wallpaper. The Social Security were of no help. Obviously, these were not classed as essential household items. I asked for a cooker, but I was refused one, and because I had a small microwave. Can you imagine the strain of cooking for 3 children in a microwave? We have our first caller on the line, and it's Eric. Hello, Eric.
Hello, David. What a wonderful letter that was read out. That exactly explains to me what I was talking to a Manx radio critic on Saturday in the street. He was criticising the way that people are helped by the social services. This is a woman who doesn't want to be scrounges of the social services, and they were criticising the way Phyllis and her very good friends helped these people who you just read about. I congratulate Phyllis and all that. They were very good. Manx radio critic is always on the radio criticising anybody who tries to help. And as I say, it just explains in detail what is going on. And I really wholly congratulate Phyllis and her friends. Another thing now, while we're getting on to where I'm on the radio, road safety. Now, I probably get into a lot of bother about this one, but road safety. Mr. North and his friends, safety friends, want to get on a main road where they're doing road works and see the standard of driving. And I'm telling you, the standard of driving, they can't even go 5 miles an hour over a ramp that is made in the road. And that includes bus drivers and all. It's absolutely crazy. We've just done a job from the Hawthorne out repairing the road. And the speeds and the manner of the people who drive on the roads. I was put in charge of guiding lorries while they were turning, stopping traffic, jumping lights, and the abuse that I got from the drivers of these cars and motorcyclists, that one fellow took his helmet off, took his gloves off, was going to set about me because I stopped them jumping the lights.
Morning, Bob.
I tried to make a point the other week on your programme, but I got cut off and I actually got flustered with my notes, actually.
Oh, yes.
Right. Well, we seem to have a problem on the island, I think, at the moment with underage drinking. I think we've got a problem with drug abuse on the island. And also, listening to this morning, we've got a crime rate that's continually on the increase. I was just thinking, from the 1st of April, I believe, because I've been away this week, we all have to wear seatbelts. Right. Wouldn't it be more constructive if Mr. Walker and Mr. Karen and all these other people addressed the real social problems that we've got on the island, rather than bothering about something that we could easily make a choice about ourselves?
So you're saying that the priorities are wrong, are you?
I am indeed. I mean, it seems that in the future, nobody's property will be safe. The gutters will be, full of young underage drunks. But everybody will wear a seatbelt, and according to the police, that they can cope with the extra legislation. I hope that this reassures your earlier callers. And I just think, well, have the authorities mixed up their priorities?
Well, it's not the first time that someone has commented in this direction with what business government's dealing with at the moment, I must admit. But, they are separate. Are they not separate issues? I mean, you sort of link them together. They are separate issues, aren't they? Road safety and drug abuse? Makes no difference.
Or crime. I mean, we're giving main floor time in our Parliament to these issues. I mean, let's address the issues that concern real people for a change.
Jim's joining us. Hello, Jim.
Good afternoon, John.
It's good morning, isn't it?
Good morning. I'd like to. There's been quite a few people on the radio, listeners, wondering what's happening to the bird population of the island. But this last few years, they have been decreasing. And
which birds are we talking about? Are we talking about all sorts?
Well, the little wrens and blackbirds, thrushes, linnets, goldfinches.
Just before we start, Jim, what's your interest in this?
Well, it's my hobby, actually. I've been in birds for years, studying them, and very much interested in them. And this last few years, the amount of birds coming to the island has been decreasing, especially the thrushes, blackbirds, linnets, and goldfinches. Well,
we can't blame the cost of travel on that, can we?
No.
Now, Marge, I think, is online too.
Yes, Moramai.
Hello, Moramai, how are you?
Well, yes,
Galascal.
Now then, this morning, listening to the Geraldine Jamieson interview.
Jameson.
Jameson or Jamieson, the Jameson raid. Now then, most interesting, an American gentleman. I would take take it he was a professor, Robbins from New York.
This was Tony Robbins from America, yes.
Yes, my word, how we could do with him in the Isle of Man. He was talking like our society often talks to architects in the island, you know, what I call corporate vandalism, and how important it is to retain these things, and what has already happened to some of our beautiful historic buildings, hundreds of years old, in Douglas in particular, and how hard his particular, I think he was under, I don't quite understand the government of New York and the government of New Jersey, and I take it that he was a government employee. Did you listen to the interview, John?
I haven't listened to all of it. I heard it was on mandate. Part of it was on mandate, and I heard that part.
I didn't hear
the part
that.
where he was criticising certain aspects of Douglas.
Yes, but I was just thinking, he's an American Gavin Stamp, isn't he, really?
He is very much so. I was just going to mention Gavin Stamp, of course.
Yes, and how we could do with him, and how we could do with him coming back and giving a public lecture very soon before any more vandalism takes place in Douglas.
Well, his parents live in Peel, Marge.
I know they do.
So he may be coming back again, I suppose.
I would hope so.
He did, in effect, give a public lecture by speaking on the programme, of course.
Yes, of course, but he spoke so quickly, John. He had so much to say within that half-hour period that you had to listen so intently to him, and he's so clever and so worthy. My goodness me, a public lecture in Douglas and Ramsey. When I think of what happened to that once beautiful town hall in Ramsey and what they've got there now.
It's obviously very not easy so much as it's not complicated to come in from outside and see the problems Douglas have. Actually solving them are a lot harder.
Rubbish, John. We have no problems. Our problem, our great problem is just greed, that's all. Greed for money. When you think of what they've done, you know, for instance, you wouldn't remember the Fort Anne, the Douglas Bay Hotel.
I used to go to the Fort Anne, to the small pub underneath there.
Oh, my goodness me. And how these greedy developers, you know, all they're concerned about is the greenback, the big pound, what they have done to Douglas and how much they have demolished.
Developers are in it for the money. It's the nature of the breed, isn't it?
The Isle of Man can well do without them, and we've got to do without them, John, before it all goes.
Do you think then that social services are not as caring as they might be, or that they ought to be looking maybe more closely at the situations of people?
I think they should look a bit more closely at people's situations. Okay, don't get me wrong, there most probably are people on this island who are scroungers and don't care what they do, but there are other people trying to keep their self-esteem up, and I do think it's about time things were looked at in a different light.
It must be absolutely heartbreaking for some people in that situation with virtually no money, probably just struggling to clothe and feed children. I mean, earlier on we heard a programme about talking about what it was like in the Isle of Man struggling to survive a couple of hundred years ago.
That's right.
But that struggle for some people still continues.
Still carrying on, exactly. And like everything, there are people who do abuse the system, etc., but there are others who do genuinely need it.
Lady of Spain, we have a Lady of Man on. Hello, Margaret.
Hello.
Hello. The hedgerows, I believe, are interesting you.
Yes, you were on the other morning speaking about the hedges on the way up to Douglas Head.
That's right, yes. They've hacked them a bit, haven't they?
They do, but why do they do it every year when the blackberries are out? The food for the birds.
We had a piece on mandate the other day, a couple of days ago, in which they are actually now making a specific effort to avoid cutting hedges and cutting small trees during the autumn and leaving it until the winter when all the berries have gone, the birds have had all the goodness, and it's safe to do so. There's a new plan being drawn up by Hedge, which is the Highways Edge Discussion Group on Ecology, I think it is.
Yeah.
So they're actually looking into this.
I think if they got somebody to advise these people when to cut the hedges, I mean, they wait till now. The flowers, I mean, I would like somebody to go through Ballath Currick Road. They have scalped it completely. They have removed everything. The flowers were in full flower. They hadn't set seed. There were tons of blackberries growing there, and they came through and they have scalped everything. Not just the edges, right back.
It is odd, actually, because just on the day that we were talking about this and the new code was being brought in by the DHPP, they did what they did on Douglas Head, which seemed a little excessive, and also, as you say, they've done it up the Curragh. All I can say is that when they bring this new code in, this shouldn't happen.
Thank you for calling us.
Thank you now.
All right,
Bye-bye.
Maura, thank you. Now it's Dorothy. Hello, Dorothy.
Good morning, David.
Morning.
I've just been listening to these calls. Now, I'm not decrying anybody because I haven't been in a position when I've desperately needed help. My children are small. But I feel sorry for that girl. But there is another side to this too. You're talking about the scroungers. What about these... now, nobody can decry a single parent. I'm not doing or judging any bars. But we've had cases in Peel, and I'm not naming anybody because I don't know the circumstances, but they've gone into houses and the social have furnished the houses for them.
Yes.
Now, wait a minute, David. Just give me a chance to finish. Now, I don't know what the circumstances is that some can get the houses furnished. But what about the pensioners? When the pensioners apply for any money, if they've got a halfpenny tucked under the mattress, they want to know about it. If you save for your old age, you've had it, mate.
Right, 66 13 68 is the number if you're calling us now. Here's another total change of topic here. This is from Teddy Blackburn, this letter. He says, I thought that listeners might be interested in this little piece of history. So quite brief, really. It says that at one time there was a belief held by the old Manx that during the reign of Richard II, the Duchess of Gloucester was exiled to the Isle of Man. He goes on to say, I think this was most unlikely. Unless a woman was seen as a rival claimant to the throne, the nobility treated their ladies, even the wives of their enemies, with the highest regard, and vengeance after rebellion was vented on the males. Gloucester, Arundel and Warwick were arrested by Richard in 1397. Gloucester was sent to Calais, where he was dispatched. Some stories say he was strangled in wet towels, but a servant of the Earl of Nottingham in later years related that he was smothered in between two beds. The Earl of Arundel was condemned as a traitor and duly executed. The Earl of Warwick was convicted of high treason, but on account of his submissive behaviour, his life was spared and he was banished to the Isle of Man, which was quite a dreadful punishment in those days.
Andrew, hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I was led to believe by somebody that the prices for conveyancing in the Isle of Man and other fees by lawyers were set down and agreed by government. Now, does that sound familiar?
Yes, they've just gone up.
Oh, you're not joking.
The conveyancing, well, certain fees, registry fees, search fees and things like that have gone up.
I'm a first-time buyer.
Yes.
Looking this week at buying a house that's in the late 40,000, you know.
Yes.
£922 conveyancing.
Well, obviously, I mean, a lot of that would have been there before. It's not all been just zoomed up because
I don't know how long it's been there, but it's still scandalous. I mean, how many first-time buyers are going to have 5,000 deposit plus £1,000 to give to the lawyer, and several hundred which goes to the government for the pleasure of looking through their documents?
How much did it cost again?
£922.
£22. It does cost a lot. I know when I bought my house 3 years ago, I was rather...
That's it, and there's something about if you learned how to do conveyancing yourself, you probably do about £120 or something.
Yeah, conveyancing does cost quite a bit of money.
Well,
the people who do it will argue that it does cost a lot of money for the various searches and things like that and the time that's required. Other people will argue that it is too much. It's one of these arguments that's been going for some time.
Well, it is when it comes to being a first-time buyer.
£922 does sound a lot of money, though.
Well, that is scandalous, considering, I say, you're scratching around to start up a house of your own, like, you know, like young people, all these dandara, they pay a lot towards it, which is an asset.
Which is one of the attractions, I suppose, of going into an estate.
It hasn't been recently built. It's just piled on, which I think is grossly unfair.
And Marge online too. Hello, Marge.
Hi, David.
Hello.
Now, to get back to congratulations to Manx Radio on your Sunday morning programmes. They really are very good, you know, from 9 o'clock. And especially this morning, you know, to listen to, you know, the Manxness of man and whether or not we are experiencing a loss of it. I think we are, David. And we're losing a lot of it. I was listening so intently to what they had to say. For instance, Paul Bagazzi, I don't know where he lives, but It is the loss of our Manxness with the loss of villages. In our village communities and in our villages, David, when they were built, the focal point was the church and the church hall, whether it be Church of England or Methodist. Now, this is where people, like he said, he didn't say that they go to church, but it's the village shop and the shops. That is where we are going to lose our Manxness with these anglicised housing estates, these straight lines of houses. There's no church, David. Now, you just put your mind to Saddlestone, to Farm Hill, to Dandara Land. There is no church and no church hall. There's no meeting place, there's no meeting community. This is where we are going to lose out as a Manx nation.
Yes, I think you're probably very right in that respect.
Joyce, hello.
Oh, good morning.
Sorry for keeping you waiting.
That's all right. I was ringing up because I'm very disappointed that we are not getting cheaper calls in November and December on the telephone. In England, they have a new system of giving calls to anywhere, I think, in the United Kingdom, for a very cheap rate, the lowest rate, all over November and December. But I hear from, I think I heard it on Manx Radio yesterday, that this does not apply to calls made from the Isle of Man.
Yes, I know the newsroom chased this up, obviously, and as you heard on the news.
Quite frankly, that it would be very much appreciated by people here, because to go back to the old story of how difficult and how expensive it is to travel from here to the adjacent island, etc. And although I do go over once a year at least in order to see my family who happen to live there, I can't spend a lot of time wandering around seeing any of my friends.
Let's go to the first of our callers. Hello, Jean.
Good morning, John.
Good morning.
I gather that Bernie Quayle had a call early on asking where the service players' golden anniversary Thanksgiving service was tonight, because it was on community calendar, but they hadn't got the name of the church. So just thought I'd tell everybody, as chairman of the service players, that it's 6:30 tonight at St Peter's Church, Onken.
St Peter's Church, Onken.
And it's quite a short service. We welcome anybody to come to it. There's a few readings on acting and so forth, and some favourite hymns of ours. And anyone who's going to the last night of the proms will be there in time, because it's only going to be about for an hour tonight.
Dean, it's your 50th anniversary, and you've got a production on which I think brings in as many of the players as possible into it.
Yes,
isn't it?
we tried to do this.
I mean, they were talking about saving probably one life in how many accidents do we have on the Isle of Man?
Well, yeah, I mean, yes, I'll accept that point, but let's just take crime. Let's take burglaries, if you like. What could government now do to reduce burglaries or increase the rate of detection or whatever, apart from having more policemen at more cost?
That's right. Well, you've just answered your own question, haven't you?
Well,
a couple of your callers earlier, they said that the biggest problem is when they tell the police that a lot of the time they don't want to know. Now, is it the fact they don't want to know, or they haven't got time to deal with the problem?
Now, Doreen. Hello, Doreen.
Hello. I just want to make a point here about the single-parent family.
Yes.
I think it's disgusting the way some of them are treated. I mean, some of these men are getting away, some of the local men as well, not only people that come over, are getting away scot-free, and people are left with little children. Okay.
Well, yes. Yes.
And the thing is, they're riding around in the flash cars and don't seem to give a hoot about their poor...
Oh, we've lost that call. Never mind. It's Derek next. Hello, Derek.
Hello.
Yes. Hello.
Hello, David. It's regarding the social problem. I spoke to you 12 months ago in an interview where my son had died fairly tragically. I think you probably remember.
I do indeed.
And at that time I was talking to police up at the police station, and not long after I spoke to the chief constable, and his words to me were that the government doesn't even consider there is a social problem on this island.
The Mannin Line from the start of the 90s with presenter David Collister and some chap who did it for a while. This has been one in a series of Manx radio programmes celebrating 60 glorious years of broadcasting. I do hope you enjoyed it.